Greetings, flesh wound horror freaks, and welcome to the long-awaited return of Analog Nightmares. I'm Flesh Wound Dan, joined by producer Todd.
Greetings.
Been too long since we've talked some shot on video horror. It's been a minute. I don't know. Like the shows were good, but we just kind of
well. Here's the thing. I think because our show, the focus was a little different, and it's originally. So since we're bringing it back, we might as well just tell it real quick. Because originally this was more of something that got stuck on VHS. Like we did the ghosting, we did a couple others. So it was that was kind of our original idea, but you know, with the SOV stuff, it just felt perfect for the Analog Nightmares. So it's going to be, honestly, it'll probably be a lot more SOV stuff than it is stuff trapped on VHS, but we will still cover that too on occasion.
Yeah, there you go. Was the ghosting a Patreon episode?
No, it was not. It was the very first episode of.
Okay, so you can go and listen to the ghosting show, which I think we had Chris McGibbon on that one.
Yes.
A lot of detail on that movie, so you'll want to check that one out. That was a very good show. So happy to bring this back. And today we have two SOV horror movies, both from 1988 that we're going to talk about. But we'll kick it off first, since they are the same year, with the 1988 film 555 from director Wally Kaz. And in 555, a hippie killer with a sex-fueled murderous bloodlust is on a rampage, and he's brutally murdering innocent young couples. A nationwide trend of killings with the same MO happens to catch the eyes of Detective Haller and Sergeant Connor. Now, every 5 years, within 5 days of each other, the killer strikes. And it's up to Haller and Connor to find out who's behind these grisly murders. Who is this crazed, bloodthirsty hippie? And more importantly, what is the significance of the third five? So this is a film that had very striking cover art back in the day on VHS. It's if I recall, it's roughly the same as the Massacre video DVD. Definitely similar, I believe. I do not have the VHS, but very, very eye-catching. And this was kind of one of those movies in the canon of SOV films that was somewhat obscure, but when you would happen to meet somebody like me that was aware of it, usually they had some very good things to say about 555. This is a film that, like I said, much like most SOV films, nobody really went on to do anything major of note necessarily in the movie, but it was something that, number one, you can mock some of the acting in this, but it's pretty good by SOV standards. It's also funny, the back and forth between the character of Susan and Connor is hilarious. It's also Susan, not your typical object of desire, which I think also kind of makes this movie stand out a little bit different. The dialogue, which is often the weakest part of some SOV horrors, because you were dealing with somebody's friends or maybe local theater people, just whoever they could get in it, was, again, it was a strength here, I think, because it was fun. They're just back and forth bickering. I think this one's pretty well paced. It's never boring. What was the runtime on this? Hour 20. So, a lot of SOV horrors would do well to sort of stay in that like 70, 80 at a max time frame. There's a lot that will shoot too much, because these were filmmakers
The
that
boarding house, the 3-hour cut.
these were filmmakers that didn't quite know what they were doing. Although you had to have a little bit more talent then than you do now to make a movie, but still, everything's got to be in there. Like a lot of times they really needed a good edit on these, but I think this one, again, paced very well, solid storyline by SOV standards, and also I say nobody really went on to do much, but that's not entirely true. Although some of it came before, but FX artist Jeffrey Lyle Segal, he did effects on Reanimator, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. He also, 2 movies that Arrow put out in the last few years or so, Chill Factor and Trapped Alive. So, there's some talent behind it. And actually, there's a really gnarly decapitation in here, fingers being sliced off, followed by decapitation, which is the artwork, and it's in the movie.
I was going to say the cover.
Yeah, and it's in the movie, because that was also very common. You'd get like some sexy babe or some awesome monster or kill sometimes that wasn't even in the movie, which you'd always feel kind of cheated once you checked it out. But I like this one. I wasn't too sure, going back to watch it again, if it would hold up. Needless to say, if you're looking for A+ production values and professional actors, you're going to have an issue with SOV horror in general. But this one, I was impressed with it. And that's not to say there's not still some stuff you're going to laugh at. I think
like watching your parents make out for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, like I said, she's not your typical object of desire in these movies.
I'd hit it and all, but that's not the point.
She showed a boob, Todd, for like 2
That's
seconds.
a Primo 88 ass.
Definitely some primo late 80s ass, Todd. And she can investigate me anytime.
12-year-old Todd would have been all.
I do find it funny, like after some of the murders, when the killer just starts like kind of dry humping the bodies. I don't know if that's supposed to be like something more, but it just kind of looks like, oh, now they're dead. Now I'm going to just dry hump their leg.
Wait till Todd finds his SOV, please.
But no, the kills were all solid. And there's something about this one. I'm not saying it's a horror masterpiece or some forgotten classic. It's not. But if you like these kind of movies, I would put 555 on your to watch list for sure. And oddly enough, we way back, not you, I think this predated you, but back in the horror theater radio, creep show radio days, we dealt with somebody who had something to do with this movie. And for the life of me, I cannot remember who it was. I know it wasn't the director, but there was somebody that...
Was it the effects person? Because I remember Chris talking about this for something.
Yeah, I can't recall, but it was somebody who really was pushing us for like some 555 stuff. And I don't remember the whole story or why it didn't happen, but yeah. In fact, God, I want to say there was even some talk about this person, whether or not they were officially involved with the film, I don't know, but they seemed to be implying they were, and maybe doing a sequel or something. I don't know what
all
came
that
of that.
Sounds very familiar to me.
Yeah, I don't know what eventually became of that, but be kind of cool to see a 555 sequel. Bring Susan back. She can show the other titty. We can
some gilf action.
Complete the cycle. Yeah, make that happen. So yeah, I mean, Todd, where does this one kind of fall for you? Because I do think it's somewhat of a gem.
I don't want to be a Dan and be like, well, for SOV movies, it's one. It's entertaining enough. It's probably Well, it's above middle of the road. It's not my favorite SOV, but I get why it is a lot of people's, because it is entertaining. But it's right on the crest of the upper echelon.
Yeah, and I mean the thing about SOV, you love them because they are rough around the edges.
Yes.
I think they always had that appeal of something that we could have all gone and made in our backyard. Now, it's not that simple, and I'm not implying that these filmmakers didn't sometimes, mortgage their house to get even a shitty SOV horror movie made. That happens. Sometimes people overspend and don't know what they're doing. So, but yeah, I go in waves on SOV. There was a point where I was really obsessed with seeing every obscure one I possibly could. And you go back to the VHS days, that was a challenge for some of these movies. There were some that even I had to see much later on in life. But I have a ton of nostalgia because I used to hunt these down. I had to go to a lot of video stores sometimes to find these. And I did. I can't remember which video store, but I was able to find 555. And it is one, huh?
I was going to say, out of any of the tapes you should have kept, it should have been the SOV ones.
Yeah, it's so funny too. Like, you had no inkling about that back then. But like I said, I even though I didn't make a lot of money on my tapes because I sold them a little bit right before it was a thing, the ones that were stragglers that I found later that just somehow got put in a closet, I made hundreds of dollars off of. So yeah. I can only imagine now. I did have a conversation.
The market's shifted though. Now the big money is on sealed tapes of like really mainstream titles. Like it's not, you're not going to get all the money for a big box Monster Hunter. You're going to get all the money for a common sealed Halloween 2. It's like, it's weird that because now it's like, people don't want to open, it's baseball cards. It's not like about the movies now.
Yeah, and some of these have been coming out. I mean, we've got Saturn's Core right now. Terror Vision's done some that are just, things kind of come in waves. I know for a long time there was a lot of Italian stuff outside of, Fulci, where it's like, man, there's so much great Italian stuff that we're not getting. And, eventually we did. And I think SOV's kind of having its day.
Yeah, and we had the J horror wave too. Yeah, horror's always gone in waves. I mean, obviously slasher going way back, but so
I believe this was a successful rental because I remember. I don't think Sunburst Video, which was like one of my big ones in Washington State back in the 90s. I remember having a conversation though with some of the clerks that I knew, because I would always come in with like these big lists and they'd tell me, oh, we don't have it, we can get it, so on. And they did say like 555 they know was like a super popular rental. In fact, I actually think I might have found it at the other Sunburst location, come to think of it. I think they did say that they had a copy there. And I remember it apparently rented really well. So this
decapitated head on the cover. Come on, tell me Little Dan wasn't a ball. You were.
Yeah. So, and it was in the movie. Like I said, even Little Dan knew sometimes like some of these fucking low budget horror movies lie. And you don't get the cool cover art.
It's marketing. Come on. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So I know the Massacre Video DVD release did also kind of bring some people out of the woodwork on this one. So yeah. Let's go ahead and rate it. And I know, Todd, you don't have a separate scale, but I always remind people, if I give a super high rating to something like this, I'm not saying it is necessarily on par with Psycho or, an elite horror film like that. They have their warts, and that's why we love them. So 555 for me, it's well paced. It's actually does have, for this type of movie, a pretty solid little whodunit storyline, some good effects, some good killings, a lot of skin. pretty much everything you could want and some laughs. So I give this one 4 stars.
No 5.55 from you.
Not quite that high.
I'm a 3.5 on this one. I do like this one, but
there you go. Maybe we'll get a Blu-ray of it at some point.
Anything's possible now.
Yes. So moving on to our next film, which this one is definitely a little bit better known. I know this one is one that, at least my memory of it, it was easier to find back in the day. And that is
distribution.
For sure. Yeah, which we'll get into that on this movie. So 1988's Cannibal Campout from director John McBride. And Cannibal Campout follows, pardon me, Amy and 3 friends go on a camping trip in the New Jersey woods, only to have their trip interrupted when they run into a trio of kill-crazy cannibal mountain men who proceed to taunt, stalk, and kill them one by one until none are left. All right, so Cannibal Campout, also again from director John McBride, who is notable in SOV Horror because he also did the same year, very busy, the Wood Chipper Massacre, which is also very, very popular amongst SOV fans. And he also later did a lot of work with Mark Polonia, the Feeders movies, and did some acting, which he's actually one of the more capable actors in this movie, which was not necessarily, again, this one is very much like I just gonna use my friends, put them in the movie, and in a lot of ways this was not something that I think they ever conceived getting worldwide distribution, which this one did get. It's a perfect example of one of these movies where everything was just guerrilla style. They went out to the woods to make a movie without even much of a script, and before you know it, it's like your movie's like available in Czechoslovakia. I think that's pretty amazing at this time that you were able to pull that off with these kinds of movies. And this certainly did that. And so I will say one issue with this is pretty close to around 90 minutes. And as I said on the other film, SOV plays a lot better in the, anywhere from 50-minute to 70-ish minute time frame. You really start going beyond that. That's where you do start to get in trouble. And there is... Mm-hmm.
No, I was just saying the problem though back then is that's what they wanted. They wanted that 90 minutes. So It's not like now where it's like, we don't care if it's 50. Then it was like 90 minutes.
Yeah, to make it like a proper film. That was the impression. So there's a lot of padding in this. There's a lot of footage of the woods. I do love the totally just not unfitting piano score that we get nonstop. Like I said, we'll cut to the piano and then we're just seeing forest footage. There are some films that do worse with that, which we'll get into, that are much harder to overlook. But this film is not. This one's not boring either. I think there's a lot of good gore in this. I think the lack of professional actors actually works for this one. They were just weird. They were out there. I mean, they were just kind of like less professional versions of Bill Moseley, I guess is how I would pitch it. It's like, I know you guys can't act to save your life, but something comes off as a little bit more authentic and endearing in your performances. I do want to talk, just to rewind a little bit, the new Terror Vision Blu-ray does have a hostess gimmick with Aurora Borealis, who I liked actually.
Yeah, you watch that version too?
Yes, I did. I did watch her segments, and Jerry the carrier bat and everything. Any horror hostess is obviously going to be compared to Elvira and of course Vampira. So
but this was pretty damn close shtick wise.
A little bit different, a little less sexualized than Elvira. Yeah. So a little different, not an exact clone, but yeah.
I'm glad they leaned into that. I like that style versus like when Code Red and Scorpion did it. They weren't. I liked a little bit of gimmicky in it, so I think that works really well.
And this also, it's Shock Tail Hour with Aurora Borealis, and I think this works really well for SOVs. I think a lot of people are going to maybe prefer watching it that way.
I want to play the drinking game, so let's do it.
There are drinking games. There's also a drink recipe. I really dug it. I hope to see her on more releases. I don't know, like, if this is going to be a thing on
hope so.
Serious movies, if it's going to stick more to their SOV stuff. I don't know.
I don't know. We'll have to check on some of the other ones from Terror Vision. I haven't even looked if any of the others have.
No, I'm loving Terror Vision and some of the variety of stuff that they've announced. It's all over the place, and I'm all in on almost all of it.
We got them coming up on our next episode too, I'm pretty sure.
Yes. And they also run down some of the alternate titles that are pitched titles, I should say. Barbecue Bloodbath, which I like, and Picnic of the People Eaters. So it adds a lot to this type of movie. This movie has like the perfect vibes for that like snarky hostess gimmick. So
I was kind of like, I was unsure going in if we were going to go more beginning and ending like the Scorpion did, or if we were going to go full Elvira or full horror host and break in throughout the movie too. Because sometimes I don't want to, like, depending on what I'm watching, but like for this, it works, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it'll add appreciation for some people who otherwise maybe wouldn't enjoy something like Cannibal Campout. So there's some gems in terms of lines, but we have to talk about, hey, baby, you suck my cock, I'll lick your pussy. That was that needs to be on a shirt if it isn't already. Terror Vision, please put that on a shirt. And this one just makes me laugh because just the ineptitude of the characters, not being concerned at all. You just ran into these insane hillbillies that pulled knives on you and threatened you with all sorts of unpleasant stuff. You drive like a mile down the fucking road, and then you're just like not concerned at all. Like, let's go for a swim. Let's set up our tents. No need to contact the authorities. It's
white people. I don't know.
I guess. But like I said, there's a lot to pick at in this movie, but it all for me. I'm sure we're going to have some analog nightmares that it's definitely not going to be this rosy, but for me, this all works. Very gory film. And I think most of the gore, obviously, this is pre-CG, so it's all practical. I think it all looks pretty cool, and some old school gut ripping. And I did laugh my ass off, and I think it might have been one of the last maybe it may have been the last hostess segment where it was a gag about John Carradine playing the killer, which he didn't, and it was just like he insisted he'd only do it if he could wear a mask and then not be credited.
Didn't talk.
It was like an exclusive interview with the boom mic operator. I thought it made me laugh. I thought the hostess portion of this was very strong. And like I said, you get some solid killings. You could definitely tell this story probably under an hour, in all honesty. So, there is some filler, but it's not, I don't know. This one, at least for me, was never like a, God, when is this going to fucking end? Stare at my watch kind of thing. It still all comes off quite well. Doesn't go as hard as you'd expect on skin, though. It's not a nudity movie, which you kind of get the vibe that it will be at the beginning. So that is one element that's kind of missing from it. But overall, I have a lot of fun with this one. I'm sure we're going to be doing Wood Chipper Massacre shortly as well. And yeah. It's a really good time if you haven't watched it, and I do highly recommend the Hostess segment. And Terror Vision's done a great job on this Blu-ray.
I agree 100%. So what do you rate it, Dan? Then
let's see, where do I fall on this one? It is missing some elements, and even though I wasn't bored, it could have used some trim. So I'm a 3.5. I'm still very strong on this one.
I'm 3.5 again on this one too. Yeah,
could have used some boobs.
Yeah,
could
have upped it to a 4, but
yeah, but it's still a very strong SOV title. And if you're maybe new to some of these SOVs, I think today these are two that you should definitely have near the top of your list.
Yeah.
So Cannibal Campout and 555. I'm not sure how out of print the 555 DVD is. I feel like that's a good candidate for a Blu-ray at some point.
I would not be shocked to see it sooner than later.
Yeah, it does feel like that might be in the pipeline at some point. So guys, thank you for watching Analog Nightmares. We will be back with another one shortly. Patreon.com/Fleshwound Features. It all starts at just $1, and you can see a lot of exclusive, uncensored, sometimes very uncensored episodes and content. And on that note, that's all I've got. I don't have an outro for Analog Nightmares. I'm gonna have to come up with one. I can't do sexy voice.
I got you, Dan. Till next time, be kind, rewind.